Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm your host, James Anderson, and we're brought to you by PickSix, the new fantasy game from Draftkings. Use code RWPicks for $50 in PickSix credits with a $5 deposit. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'd really love it if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video. That really helps me out. As many of you know, it's kind of draft bunker time of year for me. I've gotten through about the top 20 or so hitters and the top handful of pitchers thus far. And so before getting to all the great mailbag questions that I got for this week, I wanted to kind of give you guys like a little preview of sort of where I'm envisioning the top players from this class slotting in on the top 400 prospect rankings. The weird thing about this draft, and I've got a bunch of really good podcasts coming up covering the draft, some expert analysts coming on the next couple of weeks, and then we'll do a first-year player draft mock right after the draft. But the run-scoring environment in college baseball is just so crazy right now. There's potentially juiced balls, potentially juiced bats. There's just a lot going on. And so a lot of these guys at the top of the draft have crazy numbers that just you can't really compare to past years statistically, especially 2, 3, 4 years ago. So I'm going to kind of play it a little conservatively in terms of where I'm slotting the very top guys from this class. I expect Jackson Holliday and Junior Caminero to still be prospect eligible. James Wood, Jason Dominguez, Kobe Mayo. I think that's a very clear top 5 to me. Wyatt Langford and Paul Skeens, of course, have graduated. Love what Kobe Mayo's done since getting healthy. It's kind of a bummer about Caminero and Dominguez being sidelined, but that's a really, really strong top 5 to me. Walker Jenkins, I know that the numbers aren't that loud right now, but I expect him to really heat up, and I think he'll be just fine. Roman Anthony's been fantastic. I still love Christian Scott. I know that he's not in the big leagues anymore yet, but I still think he's an SP2 at least, and someone that can help contenders and rebuilders alike. Jordan Lawler, another kind of a bummer of an injury there, but I think he's still a borderline top 10 prospect. Jackson Jobe is getting healthy. So I love where he is, just kind of knocking on the door there of the top 10. Xavier Isaac, Lazaro Montes, Noel Marte, Carson Williams, Jet Williams, all top 15 prospects. If I were to update the rankings today, Andrew Painter, and then, Emmanuel Rodriguez of the Twins. I thought that was a good kind of, would you rather have Rodriguez or Charlie Condon of Georgia in Dynasty? Would Charlie Condon be putting up the type of numbers Rodriguez has put up at AA if you just plopped him in right now? Those guys are about the exact same age. I think I would take Rodriguez just because I'm just a little skeptical of all the college hitters in terms of just the crazy numbers they're putting up this season. I don't know how much of it is fool's gold, how much of it is just kind of these weird run scoring environment conditions we're in right now. But I do think Condon's production's just been elite enough, and I like the fact that he isn't a first baseman. A lot of the best college hitters in this class are first baseman or second baseman, which is just really weird to see a bunch of first basemen and second basemen in the top 10. But Condon at least can play the outfield. I don't expect him to be a value add with the batting average necessarily. Like he might only be like a 260 hitter. But I do think he'll be an elite run producer at peak. Then you got guys like Brady House, Marcel Mayer, Dylan Cruz, Noah Schultz. I think, the only thing holding Schultz back from being up with Jackson Jobe is just, he's still kind of showing us that he can handle a starter's workload. But really elite stuff. And I could see Schultz and Jobe being right next to each other by the end of the season. Don't expect either of those guys to graduate from the rankings this year. Matt Shaw has been heating up. He's up there. Sebastian Walcott. We'll get to a question about him a little bit later. Colt Emerson. And then this is where I slotted in my number 2 and number 3 prospects from the draft. 2 college middle infielders. Travis Bazana of Oregon State, obviously a well-known, extremely productive bat-first player. He can run a little bit. The fact that he's in the Pac-12 and hasn't faced very good pitching is, maybe the one like holdup I have. And then there's also just when you're a second baseman who's bat first, you're a college prospect. It's very rare that a player like that goes high in the draft, because if the hit tool isn't quite as good as it's supposed to be, there's just not really anywhere for them to go. But Bazana's been so productive that I think kind of borderline top 25 is sort of where I see him sliding in. And then JJ Weatherholt out of West Virginia. I think he's probably the guy that I sort of expect myself to be higher on than most from this class. I just think he does it all. He's a better athlete than Bazana and Condon. He's a plus runner. I think he's got a really, really good hit tool. I could go either way on Bazana or Weatherholt, to be honest. Weatherholt, I think there is some untapped power potential there, but just a big-time hit tool. I think he's like I said, a good athlete. He's going to help you with stolen bases. He might even be able to play a little bit of shortstop, whereas Bazana definitely won't be able to. So I really like Weatherholt out of West Virginia. Excited to see where he goes. And then, Luke Keyshaw versus Bazana and Weatherholt, I think, is an interesting one, because, we're kind of talking about the same type of player, and we've seen how productive Keyshaw's been. And then Aiden Miller, Max Clark kind of rounding out what I would envision the top 30 sort of looking like there. So, in theory, only 3 guys from the draft class slotting into the top 30. I do like Connor Griffin, the top prep hitter in the class, Nick Kurtz, Jack Caglione. Interested to sort of see what some of the analysts I have on in the coming weeks think of comparing, Kurtz versus Caglione. Braden Montgomery I like as well, but I think those guys will kind of populate in that sort of 30 to 50 range on the update. So really excited about the draft, but let's get to the mailbag. So the first question I've got here is from Sneaky Turtle. He says, I'm wondering if Jhonkensy Noel of the Guardians can hold this 21.1% strikeout rate. Do you believe he is a potential top 100 prospect if he holds this strikeout rate? So yeah, I think Noel is a must add if he's out there in any dynasty leagues. Kyle Manzardo's a year older than Noel with the Guardians, and they've been similarly productive at AAA, just relative to league average. Granted, Manzardo's got a better approach, but again, he's a year older. Noel has more raw power than Manzardo, and those two, to me, are going to be kind of competing for playing time because they're both just very limited defensively. I know Noel has been playing some outfield, but I just don't really, he's like 250 pounds. I just don't think that's a viable option for him in the big league. So first base, DH, maybe they try him a little bit in left field, but it's really just all about the bat with Noel. And I think he's got to produce enough to be a DH, but he might be able to. Noel was a top 100 prospect in late 2021. And I'd say he's back there as of today. He's hitting 403, 470, 714 with 9 home runs and a 14.2% strikeout rate in 29 games since the last update to the prospect rankings. So Jhonkensy Noel of the Guardians just really mashing right now. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him up in the coming weeks, just because he's already on the 40-man roster. So very impressed with Jhonkensy Noel's past month or so of production, and really kind of the whole season. He's repeating AAA, and he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. So again, if you're watching on YouTube, please like the channel, like the video. Really appreciate that. Did you ever play the over-under game with your friends? Think I can eat a slice of pizza in under 30 seconds, or I know it'll take you over a minute to down that 2-liter. If you have, then you're going to love PickSix, the new fantasy game from Draftkings. Here's how to play during baseball season. Pick between 2 and 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like runs, hits, strikeouts, and more. Track your picks and play against others for a shot to win huge cash prizes. That's all there is to it. Download the new DraftKings PickSix app and use the code RWPicks. New customers play $5 and get 50 in PickSix credits. That's code RWPicks for new customers to play $5 and get 50 in PickSix credits only on DraftKings PickSix. The crown is yours. one per new customer. Non-withdrawal PickSix credits expire in 6 months. Limited time offer. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 18 plus in most eligible states. Not available in all states, including New York and Connecticut. Eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos. Can certain weather conditions lead to more home runs? The atmosphere can affect how far a baseball flies by 20%. Homerun Forecast measures the weather conditions at a ballpark to tell us if the atmosphere is good or bad for ball flight during a game. An index value that rates the air is created for each game and ballpark and is displayed on a scale from 1 to 10. Homerun Forecast's premium site offers index values by the hour for each game, 24-hour forecast, wind direction and speed, and even whether the roof will be open at certain stadiums. Homerun Forecast is offering a special for the start of the baseball season. You can get access to the premium site for the entire season for only $28, a savings of nearly 30%. Go to homerunforecast.com/RotoWire now to sign up. So we've launched the new RotoWire Picks app over at RotoWire. It offers recommendations and predictions for fantasy pick'em and player props on platforms like Prize Picks, BetMGM, and more, covering just about every sport. It's free to download on Apple and Android. Sign up within the app for a subscription to unlock all features. Existing RotoWire.com DFS/pick subscribers get instant full access with their login. So check that out now, the new RotoWire Picks app. Okay, we're back and got a bunch more questions to get to here. First one from Cluo87 says, could we be looking at a Jackson Chourio-esque prospect ascension for Sebastian Walcott of the Rangers? He has been more than holding his own at high A as a young 18-year-old. So, yeah, what Walcott has been doing at high A lately is really, really impressive. He's slashing 306, 346, 531 with 3 home runs, 2 steals, a 27% strikeout rate, and a 6% walk rate in his last 25 games. And again, he's just super, super young, younger than most of the players at single A, younger than a lot of the players in rookie ball right now. So for Walcott to be doing this at high A is really impressive. And I really think just given how aggressive that assignment was to high A, like this is kind of the equivalent of acing the assignment. It's not quite like Juan Soto from all those years ago, but everyone I talked to was surprised he got sent to high A, and the fact that he's been above league average there is just really, really impressive for Walcott. I think tools wise, a Chourio comparison makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Walcott's built a little differently. He's a 6'4" infielder. Chourio's a 6-foot outfielder, but they both have big time bat speed and 30-30 upside and aggressive approaches. So don't mind that comparison to Chourio at all. And so Walcott, yeah, he's just steadily kind of climbing the rankings. He's already inside the top 40, so I'm not exactly sure. And as I said, at the beginning, I think he'd probably be top 30 if I were to redo it today. But if he just kind of keeps this up over the rest of summer, he's trending towards being a top 20 guy sooner than later. Eureka Rose says, what are the chances Logan Evans of the Mariners debuts this summer? He's been pitching 1 inning at a time lately, and I wonder what the plan for him might be. So, yeah, there was a report 3 weeks ago about Mariners GM Jerry DiPoto calling Evans to approach him about joining the big league bullpen this summer. Evans threw 78 total innings in 2023 and sits at about 60 innings so far in 2024. So, he was kind of going 5+ innings for about a month there, from a little over a month, from like mid-April to late May. So he wasn't going to kind of be able to keep that up over a full season unless they just wanted him to double his workload from last year. In that stretch, though, Evans made 8 starts, and he went 5+ innings in 7 of the 8, and he had an ERA under 1, a WHIP under 0.9. He had 43 strikeouts in 43 innings, and again, that was an aggressive assignment for Evans to double A. So, to me, he's a starter, no doubt, long term, and this bullpen thing that they're kind of working on in the short term here is more of a way to kind of manage his workload while helping the big league club. It's kind of frustrating though, because if they hadn't been moving him into relief and doing these 1-inning stints lately, I think he would have been probably their best option to replace Brian Wu in the big league rotation. But that would have been a short-term replacement type of thing. So he's obviously not an option for that, just given his recent usage. But as things stand, I'm going to be targeting Logan Evans in a lot of draft and hold leagues for next year, because I do think he'll spend most of 2025 in the big league rotation. Chief F says, Roderick Arias of the Yankees has improved in the month of June after struggling opening the season at single A. Is he finally adjusting to the step up in competition, or is this more of a hot streak? Arias has a 40% strikeout rate in June, so I'm not exactly sure what you were seeing. Maybe the counting stats are up a little bit this month, but Arias missed time early in his career with injuries, so it's fine that he's older for single A. He turns 20 in September, so he's older relative to the typical like high pedigree international position player at single A. But Arias needed to handle this level. There was just no reason for him to not handle it. This isn't quite like an Elijah Green of the Nationals type of situation where it's really hard to see some hope there with Green, just given how bad his strikeout issues are. But I think the odds are against Arias hitting enough to be the type of fantasy asset I thought he could be coming into the year. Camposit says, who do you like best for late season SP help? Yu Darvish, Jacob deGrom, Merrill Kelly, or Robbie Ray? Any of them worth a buy in a dynasty league? Well, I think Ray is probably, if I could only roster one guy right now, and maybe kind of excluding leagues where you can stash them on the IL, I think I would pick Ray, because I think Ray is going to be the first of those four to enter the big league rotation, possibly by, like, he might beat the rest of those guys by a month. DeGrom and Jeffrey Springs, I think you didn't even mention Jeffrey Springs, but I think DeGrom and Jeffrey Springs are the two highest upside injured pitchers that should come back this year. So maybe in leagues where you have an IL spot, maybe in leagues that have, playoffs starting in August or something like that, DeGrom and Jeffrey Springs would be my priorities just because of the upside. And actually Springs could be back. I think Ray might be back first of all these guys, but Springs could be back first as well, or second after Ray. Also worth throwing out Luis Garcia of the Astros, Clayton Kershaw, Tyler Mahle, some other veterans who are going to be coming back in the second half. But yeah, it depends on format in terms of how big your benches are, whether you can stash those guys. I don't necessarily think it's the time to trade for these guys, like right when they're about to come back. I traded for Robbie Ray last season after the injury. But anyone who's been holding Robbie Ray or Jeffrey Springs or Jacob deGrom this long, probably not looking to move them at this point. No, they're almost back. Ethan said, what are the chances the A's try to return Mason Miller to SP after this season? I'd recommend checking out my podcast with Melissa Lockard from a few weeks ago. Miller is the first player we discuss on that episode. My guess is that either the A's or a team that trades for Miller will be too tempted to not try him again as an SP. But the big key here is that he has to make it through the season healthy first. So we're just kind of getting to the halfway point of the season. And if Miller were to get hurt again this year, I think the second half is probably when I would expect that to happen. He's logged innings. He's thrown a lot of pitches at high velocity. So I don't really love the idea of looking ahead to like, what's Mason Miller going to do in 2025? I just want to see if he can make it through this season healthy as a reliever. But I do think it'll be too tempting for just the team that has him to not try him as an SP at some point. So in a perfect world, like Mason Miller makes it through the season healthy, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the A's just go with him as a starting pitcher next year. He obviously has ace level stuff, so I think it would probably take Mason Miller saying to them, I'm very comfortable just being a guy that goes out there for one inning. I don't want to get hurt again, for them to not just try it again, because it would just be so valuable to have Mason Miller. Even if he can only handle like 140 innings a season, that would just be incredibly valuable. Eureka Rose says, it seems like Jacob Misiorowski of the Brewers is limiting his walks the last 3 starts. Does that translate to an MLB opportunity this summer? So Misiorowski had 2 walks and hit 3 batters while striking out just 1 in his June 12th start. But he's definitely done a good job with the walks in 3 of his last 4 starts. I think it's, if his last couple starts turn into a real trend here over the next few weeks, I think we could see him up as an SP in the second half from Milwaukee. But what I said about Misiorowski before the season is that I expected him to come up in the second half as a reliever, late August probably, as a reliever before competing for a rotation spot in 2025. And I still think that's the most likely outcome for Misiorowski this year. Kay Freeman says, how will the injuries to Owen Murphy of Atlanta, Johnny Farmelo of Seattle, Luis Perales of the Red Sox, and Jose Corniel of the Rangers impact their rankings? Are these guys we should be dropping or stashing when they're dropped by others? So the pitchers, Murphy, Perales, Corniel, they're all going to be notable fallers. I like all 3 a lot. I think all 3 were kind of borderline top 100 on the last update. Well, Corniel maybe wasn't, because Murphy and Perales got injured after the last update. Corniel was already injured, but we didn't know he needed surgery at that point. So I'd already kind of adjusted Corniel a little bit because it's kind of scary that he was out with the elbow issue. But now that we know that all 3 of those guys, Murphy, Perales, and Corniel, have had surgery, Tommy John surgery, they're all going to be lower. I think they'll all be still probably in the top 250 or so. They're all really talented pitchers, but Tommy John surgery doesn't have a 100% success rate, obviously. And even if they come back for the start of 2026 fully healthy, their innings are going to be managed really carefully, and you don't just get to turn pitcher injuries off when a guy comes back from Tommy John surgery. Just look at Cade Horton. He's injured again, and I'm pretty worried about Cade Horton's health. So, and these guys aren't going to have any chance to really improve their stock until late 2025 at the earliest. So, I think it's kind of, depending on your league, whether they're holds or not. If you're in a deep dynasty league, you expect to exist for a long time. There's absolutely no reason to move off those 3. Be patient with them. But, if you could drop one of those guys for like Jhonkensy Noel, who I talked about at the top, that'd be the type of move to make. So it's just kind of, are you in a shallow league where you can constantly pick up breakout guys, or are you in a deeper league? That kind of determines whether you should be dropping them or not. As for Farmelo, he's probably going to probably settle in that like 100 to 150 range. He's suffered a torn ACL, but I expect him to be ready to go for the start of next season. And, usually these guys come back even stronger because all they're able to do is rehab while they're down. So I think Farmelo gets assigned to high A for his age 20 season. So it's really just kind of, it's a pause in his development. But, Farmelo is a hold in the vast majority of dynasty leagues to me. Okay, Danny J says, some New York City infielders are getting hype. What kind of upside do you see from Jared Serna of the Yankees and Nolan McLean of the Mets? I don't consider McLean an infielder long term. I've got him ranked I've got McLean ranked highly under the expectation he'll be a high strikeout starting pitcher when it's all said and done. And ideally, he'd scrap the hitting part of his game sooner rather than later. I'm not ranking McLean thinking that he's going to be a two-way player the whole way. definitely not ranking McLean thinking he's going to end up as a hitter. He just strikes out way too much. He's the type of guy where, like, he's at the right level, AA, for his skills as a pitcher. He's been really unlucky. Like, don't look at the ERA, but the fielding independent stuff's fine with McLean. But if you were just assigning him as a hitter, he'd be at high A or even single A. So not viewing McLean as an infielder. As for Serna, I think, kind of a ceiling comp on him offensively for fantasy would be sort of an Alex Bregman type of guy where, good average, good OBP, 20 homers, 25 homers, that type of thing during his peak years, maybe even hits high in the order. So yeah, I'm a Serna fan. He's got a 35% hard hit rate, 13% soft hit rate, 79% contact rate. Those are all really strong marks. But he can't really do anything right now to improve his stock in my eyes. I think Serna needs a bump to AA. Like, he's kind of already shown that he can handle high A. He's a little on the older side. So I think AA is going to be a big, important test for Serna. But if he handles that, he'll just keep climbing the rankings. Zwibby. Any hope for Jordan Walker of the Cardinals? Yes, I would say there's some hope for Jordan Walker. I would not say I'm bullish on Walker, but here's some context just in terms of his age. Walker is a year younger than Andy Pages and Kyle Manzardo and Brooks Lee and Tyler Black. You're younger than those guys. He's 3 years younger than Heston Kierstad and Joey Loperfido. So obviously it's been a disaster this year, but just imagine, like, if he'd just been if he'd never gotten to the big leagues when he did, like, I don't think anyone would be wondering if there's any hope for him. It's just he got there so early and then was completely mismanaged by the Cardinals. And now here we are. The right field experiment with Jordan Walker just needs to stop. Like, I have no idea why they're still doing that. It'd be better for his development if he was just a full-time DH, I think. But he's only played right field and designated hitter at AAA, and he's played a ton of games in right field. So I don't get the sense that the right field experiment has stopped. I'd start to get interested in Walker again if he got dealt somewhere. He could be an everyday first baseman, or if the Cardinals just announced they were going with him as their long-term designated hitter, or maybe he and Paul Goldschmidt are going to split time between first base and DH. But they've also got Wilson Contreras, who also ideally is DHing a lot. So it's just a terrible situation for Walker. I just wish that I could get him onto another team, a team that kind of knows what they're doing a bit more in the Cardinals, and just kind of put the defensive stuff out of his mind. I just think it's just been a disaster having him out there in right field. It was never going to work. He's a first baseman all the way to me at this point, but that's where we're at. But again, he's younger than so many guys at AAA, and so I wouldn't worry about it from like there's no hope standpoint, but a trade would be the best thing for Jordan Walker. Oh, my buddy Eddie Almager says, whisper sweet nothings to me about Jesus Made from Milwaukee in the Dominican Summer League. So Jesus Made, Made, is how you spell that. So he is the perfect age. He just turned 17. Love to see that for the Dominican Summer League. So he's also got pedigree. He was a top 50 signing bonus from the 2024 J15 signing period. And Made has now got the in-game production to point to as well. So he's basically checking all the boxes we could want from a DSL prospect. He's striking out and walking 15% of the time right now in the DSL. He's getting a significant power, 291 ISO. For my rookie level hitter index article from about a month ago, I mentioned that Made's power was kind of the top tool there, and that's borne out. Ben Badler of Baseball America had him pegged as a tick above average as a runner. But with these like lean, athletic 16 and 17-year-olds, the speed is often increasing. So those speed grades can be outdated. So, he could be a plus runner at this stage. The only, like, if I was just really trying to find some negatives with Mate. He's got an extreme pull rate going, 61%. Infield fly ball rate's almost 30%, but that's just really nitpicking. I give a full stamp of approval for stashing Mate if stashing DSL guys is your cup of tea. So thanks for the question, Eddie. Hope you're doing well. Nick Edgar says, thoughts on Robby Snelling of the Padres and if he will turn it around. So it's just been a really uneven season for Snelling. He got torched in Amarillo in his most recent start, which is by far the most hitter-friendly park at AA. So I'd kind of throw that start out. He had quality starts in 4 of his prior 6 starts to that one, but the 2 non-quality starts, he also got shelled in. So just very uneven, and it's led to some just really ugly surface stats for Robby Snelling. But he's not hurt, at least to our knowledge, and he's the youngest qualified pitcher at AA. So this is a rare case where I'd recommend being patient in dynasty leagues with a struggling pitching prospect. Of course, if you're in a shallower league where the top breakout guys are available, maybe you move off of him, because not only does he have to kind of get the production straightened out, but he's still a pitching prospect who's, I think at this point, safe to say he's a year away from the big leagues. So, he could get injured before he gets up. So it's not a be patient at all cost type of things with Snelling, but generally I would preach, patience, and I might even try to buy low on Snelling because of just how ugly the surface stats are. Again, he's the youngest qualified pitcher at AA. There were some blow-up outings there where you can kind of blame the ballpark. So not as good as I thought he was before the season, probably, but still, he's had, I think about a half dozen quality starts as a 20-year-old at AA. Big Doink says, is it over for Joey Wiemer of the Brewers? Seems like he's blocked and not performing. Maybe a change of scenery candidate. It's probably over for Wiemer in Milwaukee. He's definitely a change of scenery candidate, but I'm not sure whether the change of scenery comes from them like a traditional trade, or whether Milwaukee eventually just designates him for assignment and then, a move gets figured out after that. Wiemer turns 26 this offseason. So there's no real excuse for him to not be at least league average in the International League, and he's been 26% worse than league average. So I think it's probably one of those things where he's always been tinkering with his swing and his approach, and he's probably tried to fix one thing, and it's led to kind of him not getting to his power, and so it's just kind of a mess right now. He could definitely use a change of scenery. Don't see him getting any kind of extended look with the Brewers. Poogie says, why aren't the Mariners promoting Lazaro Montes to high A? How high up these prospect rankings can he climb? Well, thankfully, Montes got promoted to high A shortly after this question was asked. So, Poogie, you can stop sweating that one. As for how high Montes can climb, very rare that a non-speed prospect could climb to number 1 overall. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr., probably the only guy that I've ever put number 1 overall. Chris Bryant, I guess. Probably the only guys I think I've put number 1 overall that didn't project to help with stolen bases. But, Montes could certainly climb to the top 5 at some point. I think he doesn't really get to the top 5 for me until he's got a decent sample at AA, and we're not really seeing hit tool concerns there. He is the type of guy where I could see it. If it's not high, it could be AA, where maybe he gets figured out a little bit, just gets to a level where the pitching's too good, and all of a sudden that strikeout rate spikes, and then there's maybe a 3 true outcomes type of profile. But, for now, it's been all good. Glad to see he got to high A. I think, but since he did just get to high A in terms of getting to top 5, we're probably talking about like this off season or the first half of next season, because I do kind of want to see him at AA first. And then I had multiple people wanting to know what Xavier Isaac's injury is of the Rays. I did as much digging as I could. Unfortunately, we just don't get a ton of reporting on minor league injuries. And then at the same time, I've noticed and I've seen other people comment about how the Google News feature is just nowhere near as good as it used to be. They're just not scraping for news as much as they used to. So it's tough to dig up these injuries. I did see on Adam Sanford of D-Rays Bay blog that he watched that game where Isaac got removed, and he appeared fine during his most recent plate appearance and played 2 innings more on defense before a defensive replacement took his place in between innings. And then a random Twitter user replied to one of the Isaac tweets that I was mentioned in and just said wrist. So perhaps it is a wrist. Don't have any firm reporting or anything like that, but I don't know why anyone would reply to a tweet, on a prospect with just a fake injury report. So maybe a wrist if you really want to try to figure out what's ailing Isaac. But he was on the cusp of potentially earning a promotion to Double-A. Isaac was slashing 397, 480, 730 with 4 home runs, 7 doubles, and 5 steals in his most recent 63 at bats. So, bad timing for Xavier Isaac. If it's a serious wrist injury, that might prevent him from getting into like the top 7 or 8 by season's end, but that did sort of seem where he was trending towards. Okay, Marcin says, have you heard anything regarding what kind of injury Henry Lalane of the Yankees is dealing with? Again, hate to be the bearer of no news here, but I couldn't find anything on Lalane either. He pitched in the spring breakout game in mid-March and basically hasn't been seen since. So it's a little ominous because he was definitely airing it out in that game. And especially considering fellow Yankees hard-throwing rookie-level phenom Carlos Lagrange already made it back for the Florida Complex League Yankees from his undisclosed injury. So I still think you got to be patient with Lalane for as long as possible. You're not going to be able to really add anyone off waivers with as much upside as Lalane most likely. So hopefully we can just kind of figure out what this injury is here in the coming weeks, and then we'll have more information. But he's got number 1 pitching prospect upside. In all my digging for Lalane's injury, I saw multiple blogs and stuff comparing him to Randy Johnson. So the Yankees hype train is out of control again, but still, he's got a very high ceiling. Okay. That'll do it for this mailbag episode. Dog days of summer. Understand not a ton of people out there with questions this month, but appreciate those that did send in questions, and feel free to hit me up on Twitter or Discord with anything else that might be on your mind. The podcast is brought to you by PickSix, the new fantasy game from Draftkings. Use code RWPicks for $50 in PickSix credits with a $5 deposit.